think that would work really well. Well, I'm going to start this morning by talking about pottery, because the whole idea of fire and the trials of fire of life. I brought an old glass with me. Well, it's not made of glass, it's pottery, but I drink out of it. And it was given to me many years ago by a classmate, a minister classmate of mine. And she said she made pottery to help her cope with the stress of ministry. And I think she was trying to talk me into learning to make pottery too, but I'm not sure I have the patience that she has. Although we know the healing power of making pottery. I know Michael, when he left the Air Force and went back into civilian life, did pottery in college to help him center. And he said, I didn't know this, but you know, turning the wheel is called centering the clay. And as you center the clay, you're centering within yourself. Pottery and clay are very spiritual symbols. In Genesis, we're told God formed us from clay, metaphysically, of course. In the book of Isaiah, you are the potter, we are the clay. And we're not talking about some man in the sky making us out of clay. We're talking about our higher self working with us here on this plane of duality to transform us into the beauty that we can be. And there was a man by the name of Charles G. Zug III. Fun enough to have the name Zug, but then you follow it with the third. And he wrote a book called Turners and Burners. I love that. And he said clay is one of the most versatile materials known to man. It's soft, flexible, plastic, almost infinitely variable in its natural state. And this mud, as the potters refer to it, is abundant, easy to locate, and cheap. But when it's burned with fire, it undergoes an irreversible transformation. Wow, that purification of fire is a common spiritual metaphor. I'm not talking about the hell of traditional religion. God save us from that belief. But what I call it is the transformational power of facing and processing life issues in a way that purifies and transforms us, like the clay of pottery. Let me repeat that, the transformational power of facing and processing life issues in a way that purifies and transforms us, like the clay in pottery. Not always pretty, not always fun. Anybody here gone through a trial by fire? We all got our stories, don't we? Not always fun, and it takes courage and faith to trust when you're in the fire. I don't know about you, most people avoid the fire. I tend to jump right into it, and then oops. But those trials by fire have always strengthened me, and I've always had to trust Romans 9, all things work together for good. That doesn't mean all things are good, but all things can work together for good. And there are many biblical examples, and there's one that's like a tongue twister. Remember the old tongue twisters? Let's try one. Remember, I can never do this one 3 times real fast, and I'll say it first, and you all join me 3 times, okay? Susie sells seashells at the seashore. 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 You lost me on the second one. Well, the Bible has one too. 3 names, my favorite names in the Bible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Let's all say that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I love saying those names. And they're in the book of Daniel, which is an interesting book. It's a collection of stories of people going through trials by fire. And the stories were told to build people's faith because the Israelites were being held in captivity in Babylon. And to disempower them, they weren't allowed to practice their faith. You want to disempower somebody, take away their faith, whatever it is. And there was an ego king, King Nebuchadnezzar. What a name. Say that one with gum in your mouth, right? King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon ruled. And talk about a name, and even his name is scary. And he ruled filled with an ego. He was a bully. Can you imagine a country having a bully ego? But metaphysically, we have to look, oh, wait a minute, metaphysically, it's my human ego we're talking about. Every story, my human. I always have to go back and look at that. So the king liked Daniel. For some reason, he liked Daniel. So he hired his 3 Jewish friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Help me out whenever I have to say that. And he gave them a really high position in province. Now that sounds good on paper, but they had to obey the king. And he was this egoic bully of a king. And he said, he built a golden statue. And he said, everybody has to worship this golden statue or I'll throw you into the furnace and burn you to death. Ooh, everybody boo, boo. Guess who didn't want to worship the false god? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You're good at that, very good. And then some racist co-workers tattled on them. Can't you just hear them? They are not worshiping the false golden idol. And so they were called to the king. And the king was very angry. And he said, do you think there's a God that can save you? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered, Your Majesty, we will not try to defend ourselves. If the God whom we serve is able to save us from the blazing furnace and from your power, then he will. But even if he doesn't, Your Majesty may be sure that we will not worship your God, and we will not bow down to the gold statue you have set up. Well, the king was so angry. How angry was he? He made the guards heat the fire in the furnace 7 times hotter than usual. Ooh, yes. How hot was it together? How hot was it? It was so hot that even the guards who carried them and threw them into the fire burned up. Even the guards burned up. Everybody, boo, yes. Well, the king watched, and he became in shock. For Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were dancing in the fire. They were dancing, and there was a 4th person in the fire that looked like an angel dancing with them. Well, the king was so shocked, he called them out of the fire. Explain yourselves, When they came out, they walked up, not a hair on their head was singed. And the king proclaimed, no one dared to disrespect the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or they'll be torn from limb to limb. He just can't help himself. Bullies cannot help themselves. They just can't stop being bullies. And then he promoted them. He promoted them to a higher position. I think it was moonlighting at the fire department, but that's a The moral of the story for us, keep the faith during those times of fire. Be strong during those trials. Know your union with God. You are safe and protected. Metaphysically, it's all happening inside of us when we're held in captivity in a Babylonian state of mind. What's the state of mind of Babylon? It's a state of confusion. Anybody in Green Valley get confused? No, none of you do. Metaphysically, the state of confusion, outer confusion, sense confusion, mental confusion, and chaotic confusion. There are times when we find ourselves in the condition of sense consciousness, and its thoughts are so strong that they seem to have us in captivity. Such cases symbolize the state of mind of captivity in Babylon, and we can all relate to that, can't we? Michael came home the other day. He went somewhere and he got the date wrong, and he came home and said, I can't believe I got the date wrong. And I said, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. I'm always getting dates wrong. It takes courage and faith, doesn't it? Especially when you're up against somebody like King Nebuchadnezzar. Metaphysically, kings are what rule us. What ruling thoughts in you are causing this confusion? Is it fear? Belief in duality? belief that this is real? Is it worry? Is it self-esteem? Is it guilt and shame? Is it unforgiveness? What's keeping you in a state of mind of confusion? Because if we don't deal with our stuff, the law of attraction will draw to us trials by fire so that we're forced to deal with it and rise above it. I'm not talking about a God out there doing it to us. There's nobody out there doing it to us. Our higher self, the divine in us, working together with us, drawing us circumstances that make us stronger, more evolved, more enlightened, awakened. And the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, are three states of consciousness in us that help us through the trials by fire and give us the courage to stand and walk through it. Let's take them one at a time. The first one is Shadrach, and he represents meekness. Meekness. Well, if I'm in a trial by fire, meekness seems to be the last thing you'd want. You'd want to have strength and power, right? No, meekness. What does that mean? Even Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for the meek shall inherit the earth." Doesn't mean you stand back and take abuse, but you trust in the divine, not in your own human efforts. Anybody here trying to do it alone? Know how that works? Course in Miracles always says, if you are trusting in your own power, you have every right to be afraid. My favorite Course in Miracles. The fourth man in the fire is your higher self, the divine, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call that presence, the divinity in you that's dancing with you in the fire. Not by power nor by might, but by my spirit. I'm not a real strong physical human being, but man, my spirit has had to be strong over the years. Nothing can stop that. Let's look at some examples of very meek heroes. These heroes were very meek. Mahatma Gandhi, he was so meek. How meek was he? He transformed a nation. Martin Luther King, he was so meek. How meek was he? He transformed a country. Mother Teresa, so meek. How meek was she? She transformed the dying. Jesus, so meek. How meek is he? He's still transforming any heart that is open to him. Let's go on to Meshach. Meshach represents love, not romantic love. And I think I found the best explanation ever. Love is the attracting and expanding power of the universe. Love is the creative power of the universe, constantly attracting and expanding. It's that which draws to us all good. It's irresistible. So we simply, like the Golden Key says, we don't focus on the problem. We give love to the power of the presence, not the problem. We focus on the presence. Perfect love casts out all fear. That's how powerful it is. Perfect love casts out our confused state of mind. Perfect love casts out egoic fears of separation. Nothing like, so we got Meshach representing, what I already forgot. What did he represent? Meekness. And then we got Meshach representing love. So we got meekness and love. Okay, now we got the third thing. Abednego represents the light of understanding. You know, Scripture says, get wisdom, but above all else, get understanding. Wisdom's only good enough if you understand it and know how to integrate it. I paraphrase the Hopi. The Hopi always say, does it grow corn? If it doesn't grow corn, don't use it. Wisdom helps, but spiritual understanding grows corn. If I know I'm in union with God, I've got courage. If I know I'm in union with God, I can walk through anything without fear. So you combine Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Meekness, trusting the fourth man in the fire. That's a divine presence in you. Centered in love. Repeat with me. Love is the attracting and expanding power of the universe. Together. Love is the attracting and expanding power of the universe. Stand in that. and spiritual understanding, realizing your union with God. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You can dance with that fourth man in the fire, the higher self, the I am presence. We use our I am to speak of the divinity within us. United with God, I am able to walk through anything with grace and with ease. Together, united with God, I am able to walk through anything with grace and with ease. And let's take that into prayer. Oh, we know we are not alone. And collectively together, we reinforce that. I see the divinity in you, you see it in me. And we give each other that faith and strength and support. We give love to the idea, the divine idea of each of us. For we are infinite ideas in the mind of God. Our way is made easy. We have faith. We have the peace of the presence and the strength to walk through any trial on this earth. We dance in it. We stand in it. And we come out of it transformed as we say, thank you, Father, Mother, God, in the nature of Christ. And so it is. Amen.